They said I was dying. They said I didn't need the money. They said I should hand it over for the family. But when I asked who would pay for my surgery, no one raised their hand. Now they're about to learn what happens when you push a mother to the edge. My daughter Susan stood in my kitchen with her manicured nails tapping against my granite countertop. The same countertop I had scrubbed for 20 years. The same kitchen where I had fed her baby food, packed her lunches, held her hair back when she was sick. Now she looked at me like I was a piece of furniture she was trying to sell. "Mom, we've been over this 3 times, she said. The money is just sitting there. Dad's insurance. The savings account. You're not using it." I gripped the edge of the sink so hard my knuckles turned white. The hot water burned my hands, but I kept them there. The pain was something to hold on to. Something real. "I'm using it for my knee replacement," I said. "The doctor said I need it within the year, or I'll be in a wheelchair." Behind Susan, my son Mark leaned against the refrigerator. His arms were crossed. His jaw was tight. He had the same stubborn look his father got when he was about to say something cruel. I had seen that look for 30 years. I knew what was coming. "Mom, you're not having surgery," he said. "You're fine. You walk around. You go to the store. You're just trying to guilt us." I turned off the water. The silence was louder than the rushing. "Guilt you," I said. "I'm trying to stay mobile. I'm trying to stay independent. Do you know how much a knee replacement costs? The surgeon alone is $12,000. Physical therapy is another $5,000. The hospital stay is—" "We don't care about the numbers," Susan cut me off. "We're talking about the family. Your grandkids. Their futures. We need a bigger house. The schools are terrible where we are. We need the money now." I looked at her. Her face was flushed. She had always been pretty. She had always gotten what she wanted. But she had never been sick. She had never lain in a hospital bed and wondered if she would walk again. "So you want me to hand over all my savings?" I said. "Every cent." "Yes," Mark said. "That's exactly what we're saying." "And who's going to pay for my medical bills?" They exchanged a glance. That quick, silent conversation that happens between siblings when they're about to decide who's going to say the thing they both know is wrong. Susan spoke first. "We can figure that out later. After we get the house. After we settle." "After," I repeated. "Later. You'll figure it out later." Mark pushed off from the refrigerator. He walked toward me, his footsteps heavy on the linoleum. He was a big man like his father. He used his size to intimidate. He always had. "Mom, you have Medicare," he said. "You have Social Security. You're not broke. You're just scared. You've always been scared. Dad handled everything, and now you can't handle anything." Something in my chest snapped. Not my heart. Something deeper. Something I didn't know I still had. "Your father," I said, my voice low and steady, "died in this house. In the bedroom down the hall." I held his hand while he gasped for air. I called the ambulance. I rode with him to the hospital. I watched them try to save him. I watched them fail. And then I came home to this kitchen and made myself a cup of coffee because I knew that no one else was going to make it for me. And I have handled everything. Every single day since. Mark's face twitched. For a second, he looked like the boy who used to cry when he lost his baseball mitt. But then the hardness came back. "That was years ago," he said. "You need to move on." "Move on," I said. "You think I haven't moved on?" "I moved on to living alone. I moved on to cooking for one. I moved on to paying the bills by myself. I moved on to scheduling my own doctor appointments, driving myself to the pharmacy, carrying my own groceries up the porch steps. I moved on. But I didn't move on so I could give everything to you." Susan's voice rose. "Mom, you're being unreasonable. We're your children. We're your only family. What are you going to do with all that money anyway? Buy a new car, go on a cruise? You're not going anywhere. You don't do anything." She was right. I didn't do anything. I didn't travel. I didn't buy new clothes. I didn't eat out. I had been saving. Saving for a rainy day. Saving for an emergency. Saving for the day my body finally gave out, because I knew that day was coming. And I knew in that moment that my children would not be there to catch me. I walked to the drawer under the microwave. The one with the old receipts and the takeout menus and the junk mail. I pulled out a thick manila envelope. You want to see what I'm doing with the money, I said. I opened the envelope and pulled out the medical bills. One by one. I placed them on the counter. The MRI. The consultation. The lab work. The pre-surgical testing. The quote from the orthopedic surgeon. The physical therapy estimate. This is the future you're ignoring, I said. This is what I've been paying for. This is what I need to survive. Not a bigger house. Not better schools. These are my life. Susan looked at the papers. Her eyes scanned the totals. She blinked. That's a lot, she said. Yeah, Mark said. That's a lot. But you can afford it, Mom. You've got Dad's life insurance. You've got the retirement account. You're not destitute. I laughed. It was a hollow laugh. The kind that echoes in an empty room. You think I should drain my accounts to pay for my own medical care, I said. And also give you the rest. So that you can buy a house. So that I can become an afterthought. Mom, that's not what we're saying, Susan said, but her voice had lost its edge. She was backtracking. I had seen her do this before. She would push, and when she faced resistance, she would retreat into the soft, wounded tone. It was manipulation. Pure and simple. Then what are you saying? I asked. Mark stepped closer. His voice was low. We're saying you have a choice. You can help your family now while we need it. Or you can hoard your money and watch us struggle. And when you're gone, we'll remember. We'll remember that you chose yourself over your own grandchildren. He was good. I had to give him that. He knew exactly where to stick the knife. He knew that the grandchildren were my weakness. My beautiful granddaughters. Emma and Claire. They didn't know about any of this. They were too young. They came to my house on Sundays and ate my cookies and played in the backyard. They were the only bright spots in my life. But Mark was asking me to trade their future for their present. And he was asking me to become invisible in the process. Mark, I said, if I give you all my savings, where will I live when I can't afford the mortgage on this house? Where will I go when I need a walker who will drive me to the doctor when I can't drive anymore? Will Susan? Neither of them answered. Will you come over and make me dinner? Will you change my bandages? Will you hold my hand when I'm scared? Susan looked at the floor. Mark looked at the wall. Will you? I asked again. My voice cracked. I hated it. I hated that they could still make me feel this weak. We'll figure something out, Mark muttered. You keep saying that, I said. You keep saying you'll figure it out. But nobody is figuring it out. You're just hoping I'll be gone before I become a problem. The truth hung in the air between us. Ugly and undeniable. Susan started to cry. Not real tears. The kind she could turn on and off. The kind that had gotten her out of trouble since she was a child. Mom, that's not fair, she said. You're twisting everything. I shook my head. I'm not twisting anything. I'm just reading the words you wrote on the contract of this conversation. You want my money. You don't want me. We want both, Mark said. We want you to be happy and secure and also help your family. Is that too much to ask? Is it too much to ask, I said slowly, that you cover my medical bills, just the ones I have now? Not the future ones. Just the ones I can't ignore anymore. You take my savings. You pay my surgical costs. That's the deal. They looked at each other again. That silent conversation. The one where they decided whether I was worth the investment. No, Mark said. No, Susan echoed. That's not what we agreed to. I nodded. I had expected it. I had known it. But hearing it still hurt. Like a needle in the chest. A slow, deliberate puncture. Then there's no deal, I said. Mom, get out of my house. We're just trying to, I said. Get out. They left. They slammed the door. The coffee mugs they had used were still on the table. I dumped them in the sink. I dried my hands on the towel. I sat down in the dark living room, in my husband's recliner, and I stared at the wall. That night, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to my lawyer, Harold. The second was to the orthopedic surgeon. I scheduled the surgery for the following month. I used my savings to pay the deposit. I didn't tell my children. They didn't deserve to know. The surgery was brutal. The anesthesia made me sick. The incision was long and red and angry. The physical therapy was a nightmare. I cried in the hospital bathroom, sitting on the toilet, gripping the grab bar, wondering if I had made a mistake. But I healed. Slowly. One step at a time. One day at a time. And then, for months later, I walked into Harold's office and signed the new will. You're sure about this? He asked. I've never been more sure of anything, I said. And when the will was read, when my children sat across from me in that dusty office, when Harold read the line about the $1 each and the rest to St. Jude's Children's Hospital, the silence that fell was the sweetest sound I had ever heard. Their mouths opened. Their faces went pale. Susan started to cry, real tears this time. Mark slammed his fist on the table. You did this, he said. You disinherited us for a bunch of strangers. They're not strangers, I said. They're children. Children who need help. Children whose parents can't afford their treatment. Children who are dying. And you know what? Not one of them ever asked me for a dime. You're a monster, Susan sobbed. No, I said. I'm just a woman who finally realized that family is not about what you take. It's about what you give. And you both gave me nothing. I stood up. My knee didn't hurt. My back was straight. My head was high. You came into my kitchen and demanded everything I had. You offered me nothing in return. You watched me struggle and you looked away. And now, you have exactly what you gave me. Nothing. Mark lunged forward, but Harold's assistant was already at the door. The security guard appeared. My children were escorted out of the building. I sat back down in Harold's office. The room was quiet. The papers were signed. The will was final. I looked at my lawyer. Thank you, Harold. He nodded. You did the right thing, Helen. Did I asked. He reached across the desk and touched my hand. You did what you had to do. That's all any of us can do. I drove home in the late afternoon sun. The light was golden. The air was cool. I rolled down the window and let the wind hit my face. When I got home, I went to the kitchen. I made myself a cup of tea. I sat at the table and watched the shadows lengthen. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt free. The phone rang. I didn't answer it. It rang again. And again. Finally, the voicemail picked up. Mom, Susan's voice said, broken and small. Mom, we're sorry. We didn't mean it. Please call us. Please. We can't afford the mortgage on the house. We're going to lose everything. Mom. Please. I sipped my tea. The phone was on the counter. I didn't touch it. I looked up at the photograph of my husband on the mantel. He was smiling. The way he used to smile when we were young. When we had nothing but each other. I did it, I whispered to him. I protected myself. I protected your legacy. I didn't let them take everything. I swear I felt him nod. I swear I felt his warmth in the room. The phone kept ringing. I turned it off. I put it in the drawer. And I spent the rest of the evening watching the sunset through my kitchen window, knowing that for the first time in my life, I had finally chosen myself. If this story hit home, if it made you think about your own family, your own boundaries, your own worth, then don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And leave a comment below. Tell me your story. Because every story matters. And every voice deserves to be heard. Remember this. The people who love you will never demand everything and offer nothing. And the people who demand everything and offer nothing never loved you in the first place. My name is Helen Walsh. I am 58 years old. I have a new knee, a new will, and a new life. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. The silence in Harold's office was still ringing in my ears when I pulled into my driveway that afternoon. The sun was dipping low, painting my little house in shades of gold and amber. I sat in the car for a long moment, my hands still gripping the steering wheel, my knuckles white. I had done it. I had actually done it. I had cut them off. I had given them $1 each and sent the rest to children who would never know my name. I expected to feel guilt. I expected to feel the crushing weight of a mother's betrayal. Instead, I felt light. Hollow, but light. Like someone had reached into my chest and removed a tumor I hadn't known was there. I walked up the porch steps slowly. My new knee ached, but it was a good ache. The ache of healing. The ache of progress. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The house was quiet. It had always been quiet since my husband passed, but tonight it felt different. It felt like my house. Not theirs. Not his. Mine. I made myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table. The same table where my children had sat and demanded my life savings. The same table where I had fed them breakfast before school. The same table where my husband had read the newspaper and complained about the weather. So many memories in this room. So many ghosts. My phone buzzed. I glanced at it. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A moment later, the voicemail notification appeared. I didn't listen to it. I didn't need to hear more begging. I had heard enough begging in Harold's office. I had heard the desperation in Susan's voice when she realized the money was gone. I had heard the rage in Mark's when he realized he couldn't control me anymore. I finished my tea and went to bed early. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. The next morning, I woke to the sound of birds. Real birds, not the alarm clock. I stretched in bed and felt the stiffness in my muscles, but it was a good stiffness. The stiffness of a body that was fighting to stay alive. I made coffee and sat on the back porch. The garden was overgrown. I hadn't tended to it in months. My husband had been the gardener. He had loved roses. He had planted them along the fence line, and they had bloomed every summer without fail. But this summer, they were choked with weeds. I looked at them and felt a pang of loss. Not for him. Not anymore. For the life we had built. The life that was slowly crumbling. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Susan. Mom, we need to talk. Please. Not about the money. About us. Can you come to the house? I stared at the text. The house. She meant her house. The big house in the suburbs. The house she couldn't afford without my money. I typed back. No. A moment later, the phone rang. I ignored it. It rang again. I turned it off. I had made my decision. I wasn't going to be pulled back into their orbit. I wasn't going to be manipulated by crocodile tears and empty promises. I had spent my whole life giving. It was time to receive. But the phone call that evening changed everything. I was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for a salad. I had just started eating healthier. The surgeon had recommended it. Low salt, low fat, lots of greens. I was trying. I really was. My knife was halfway through a cucumber when the landline rang. The landline. The one I never used. The one my husband had insisted on keeping for emergencies. I wiped my hands on my apron and picked it up. Hello, is this Helen Walsh? The voice was clipped. Professional. Female. Yes. This is Rebecca from the office of Dr. Morrison. I'm calling about your recent MRI results. Do you have a moment to talk? I felt my stomach drop. Dr. Morrison was my oncologist, not my orthopedic surgeon. The oncologist I saw every 6 months for follow-up scans after my breast cancer diagnosis 5 years ago. The cancer that had been in remission. The cancer that was supposed to stay in remission. Yes, I said. I have a moment. Dr. Morrison would like to see you as soon as possible. We have an opening tomorrow at 10 a.m. Can you make that? My hand was shaking. I set the knife down. What's wrong? I'm not at liberty to discuss the results over the phone. But Dr. Morrison feels it's important to speak with you in person. I closed my eyes. The kitchen spun. The walls felt like they were closing in. I'll be there, I said. I hung up the phone and stood in the middle of the kitchen. The silence was suffocating. I thought about my children. I thought about the will. I thought about the money I had given away to a hospital for sick children. And I thought about the irony. The cruel, brutal irony. I was sick. Again. I called Harold. He answered on the first ring. Helen, what's wrong? I need to see you, I said. Tomorrow. After my doctor's appointment. Something has come up. Of course, he said. What time? 3 p.m. I'll be here. The next morning, I drove to the hospital. The building was glass and steel and cold efficiency. I sat in the waiting room with a magazine I wasn't reading. I watched the clock. 10:15, 10:30. 10:45. When the nurse finally called my name, my legs felt like they were made of lead. I followed her into the examination room. Dr. Morrison came in a few minutes later. He was a kind man. Gentle. But his face today was serious. His eyes held something I didn't want to see. Helen, he said. Please sit down. Saturday, the MRI shows a small lesion. On your spine. It's in the same area as the original tumor. I'm not going to lie to you. It's concerning. We need to do a biopsy to determine what we're dealing with. A lesion, I repeated. Is it cancer? He hesitated. That hesitation was all the answer I needed. We don't know yet, he said. That's why we need the biopsy. I've scheduled it for next week. We'll have results within a few days after that. I nodded. I thought I would cry, but the tears didn't come. I was numb. Empty. A shell. What are my options? I asked. We'll talk about options when we know more, he said. But I want you to know, Helen, that treatment has come a long way. Even if it is cancer, it's not a death sentence. Not anymore. But we need to act quickly. I nodded again. I stood up. I walked out of the room. I walked down the hall. I walked through the lobby and out into the parking lot. The sun was too bright. The sky was too blue. The world was still turning, and I was standing still. I sat in my car for a long time. I thought about calling my children. I thought about telling them. I thought about the look on their faces when they realized their mother was sick. Would they care now? Would they offer to help, or would they still be angry about the money? I knew the answer. I had always known the answer. I drove to Harold's office. He was waiting for me. His door was open. His face was concerned. What happened? He asked. I sat down in the chair across from his desk. The same chair I had sat in when I signed the will. The same chair I had sat in when my children were escorted out of the building. The cancer might be back, I said. I find out next week. Harold was quiet for a long moment. He leaned back in his chair. He studied me with those old, wise eyes. Have you told your children? No. Are you going to know? Good. I blinked. Good. Harold leaned forward. He folded his hands on the desk. Listen to me, Helen. You made a decision. A hard decision. A decision that took courage. And now you're facing another hard decision. But this one is simpler. You need to take care of yourself. You need to focus on your health. You don't need their drama. You don't need their guilt. You don't need their false promises. He was right. I knew he was right. But if I get really sick, I said. If I can't take care of myself. We'll figure that out, he said. There are resources. Home health aides. Meals on wheels. There are people who will help you. You just have to ask. I nodded. I felt the tears coming. I let them come. Okay, I said. Okay. I left Harold's office and drove home. I was halfway there when my phone buzzed. It was Susan again. I let it go to voicemail. A few moments later, a text came through. Mom, I know you're ignoring me. But you need to know. Mark is coming over. He's furious about the will. He's saying things. Bad things. I think you should be careful. I think you should lock your doors. I stared at the text. My hands were trembling. I pulled the car over to the side of the road. Mark was coming. Mark was furious. Mark was saying bad things. I looked in the rearview mirror. There was a car behind me. It had been behind me since I left the hospital. A dark sedan. I hadn't noticed it before. I didn't recognize it. I pulled back onto the road and drove faster. The sedan followed. I turned down a side street. The sedan followed. I made a quick right into a residential neighborhood. The sedan followed. My heart was pounding. My hands were slick with sweat. I drove faster and faster until I reached the police station. I pulled into the parking lot and parked in front of the doors. The sedan drove past slowly. I couldn't see the driver's face through the tinted windows. But I knew. Somehow, I knew. I sat in my car for a long time. The tears were coming now. Real tears. The kind I couldn't stop. I thought about my husband. I thought about the life we had built. I thought about the children we had raised. I thought about the grandchildren I adored. And I thought about the will. The will that had changed everything. I had given my money away to sick children. And now I was one of them. The irony was so sharp it cut. But I also felt something else. Something I didn't expect. Something I hadn't felt in years. I felt hope. Not for my children. Not for my health. Hope for myself. Hope that maybe, just maybe, I had made the right decision. Hope that maybe, just maybe, I could survive this. Hope that maybe, just maybe, I was stronger than I thought. I sat in the police station parking lot for an hour before I started the engine. The sedan was gone. I drove home slowly. I checked every mirror. I watched every car. But I was alone. When I finally reached my house, I parked in the garage. I locked the door behind me. I locked all the windows. I checked the locks on the back door. I checked the locks on the basement door, and then I sat in the dark living room, with the phone in my hand, and I waited. I waited for the phone to ring. I waited for the knock at the door. I waited for the silence to break. But the silence held. And in that silence, I made a decision. I was not going to run from my children. I was not going to cower in my own house. I was not going to let them control me with fear. I had faced cancer before. I had faced death. I had faced a life of sacrifice. I could face them. I picked up my phone. I typed a message to Susan. Tell Mark to come. I'm ready. And then I waited. The doorbell rang at 8 p.m. I walked to the door. My hand was steady. My heart was steady. I opened the door. Mark stood on the porch. His eyes were red. His clothes were rumpled. His hands were shaking. He looked like a broken man. Mom, he said. I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you years ago. I stepped aside. Come in. He walked into the living room. He sat down on the couch. I sat across from him. He looked at the floor. He didn't meet my eyes. Mom, he said. I took money from your accounts. 2 years ago. I took $15,000. I used it to pay off gambling debts. I didn't tell you because I was ashamed. But I need you to know. Because I can't keep pretending. The room was silent. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Why are you telling me now? I asked. He looked up at me. His eyes were wet. Because I'm scared, Mom. I'm scared of losing you. I'm scared of being the person I've become. I'm scared of living the rest of my life knowing I hurt you. I looked at him. My son. My beautiful son. The boy who used to run to me when he scraped his knee. The boy who used to cry in my arms. The boy who had grown into a man I didn't recognize. Mark, I said. I have cancer. His face went pale. What? The cancer might be back. I find out next week. He stared at me. The tears were falling freely now. Mom, I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry. I reached across the space between us. I took his hand. It was cold. It was trembling. I forgive you, I said. He collapsed into sobs. I held him. I held him like I used to hold him when he was a child. And in that moment, I felt something shift. Something changed. Maybe forgiveness was possible. Maybe healing was possible. Maybe my story wasn't over. But I also knew that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean giving back the money. It didn't mean trusting blindly. It meant starting over. On my terms. If this story connected with you, if it made you feel something real, then share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that like button. Leave a comment. Tell me your story. Because in the end, we're all just trying to survive. And sometimes, survival looks like forgiveness. And sometimes, survival looks like walking away. My name is Helen Walsh. I am still standing. And that is more than enough. I held my son in my living room for what felt like hours. His body shook against mine. His tears soaked into my cardigan. The same cardigan my mother had worn. The same cardigan I had worn to my husband's funeral. It had absorbed so many tears over the years. It was still absorbing them. I'm sorry, Mom, Mark kept saying. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean any of it. The money. The things I said. I was angry. I was scared. I was so stupid. I held him. I patted his back. I made the same soothing sounds I used to make when he was a toddler and woke up from a nightmare. It's okay, I said. It's okay. But it wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. My son had stolen from me. My daughter had manipulated me. My body was betraying me. And somewhere out there, someone in a dark sedan was following me through the streets of my own town. I didn't tell Mark about the sedan. I didn't tell him about the fear that had gripped me in the car. I didn't tell him about the way my hands had shaken when I pulled into the police station parking lot. I didn't tell him because I wasn't sure if he was part of it. I wasn't sure if the sedan was his doing. I wasn't sure of anything anymore. Mark finally pulled away. His face was blotchy. His eyes were swollen. He looked like a little boy again. A little boy who had done something terrible and didn't know how to fix it. Mom, he said. I want to make this right. I want to pay you back. I don't have the money right now, but I'll find a way. I'll sell my car. I'll get a second job. I'll do whatever it takes. I looked at him. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this was the turning point. That my son had finally seen the light. That the years of greed and entitlement had been washed away by a single moment of honesty. But I was a nurse. I had seen people change. I had also seen people pretend to change. I had seen deathbed confessions that meant nothing. I had seen promises made in fear and broken in relief. Mark, I said, I appreciate that. But right now I need to focus on my health. I can't worry about the money. I can't worry about the past. I need to stay strong for the biopsy. I need to stay strong for whatever comes next. He nodded. I understand. I'll be here. I'll be at the hospital. I'll drive you to appointments. I'll take care of you. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. Where was this Mark when I was crying in the physical therapy parking lot? Where was this Mark when I was paying for my surgery with money I had saved by skipping meals? Where was this Mark when his sister was demanding I hand over everything? But I didn't say any of that. I just nodded. I just accepted his offer. Because I was tired. So tired. He left around 10 p.m. I locked the door behind him and leaned against it. My legs were weak. My heart was pounding. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were still shaking. The phone buzzed. Susan. Again. I ignored it. I went to bed and stared at the ceiling for hours. The dark sedan kept appearing in my mind. The tinted windows. The slow, deliberate pace. The way it had followed me through every turn. I had never seen it before. I had no idea who was driving it. But I had a suspicion. A dark, ugly suspicion that I didn't want to admit. The next morning, I called Harold. I told him about the sedan. I told him about the fear. I told him about the way my son had confessed to stealing from me. Helen, Harold said. You need to be careful. You need to protect yourself. This is not just a family dispute anymore. This is something else. What do you mean? I asked. I mean your son stole from you. Your daughter tried to manipulate you. And now someone is following you. Those things might be connected. But Mark was here last night. He was crying. He was apologizing. He seemed genuine. People can be genuine and still be dangerous, Harold said. Fear makes people do terrible things. Desperation makes people do terrible things. Your son is desperate. Your daughter is desperate. And desperate people don't always think clearly. I felt the cold seep into my bones. What do I do? File a police report, Harold said. Get it on the record. If something happens, there's a paper trail. And install security cameras. Outside your house. Inside your house. Everywhere. I didn't want to. I didn't want to believe that my children were capable of something worse than greed. But I also didn't want to be a fool. I had been a fool for too long. Okay, I said. I'll do it. I spent the rest of the morning calling security companies. I had cameras installed on the front porch, the back porch, the garage, and the side entrance. I bought a doorbell camera. I bought motion sensor lights. I turned my home into a fortress. The technicians looked at me with pity as they drilled holes and ran wires. They probably thought I was a paranoid old woman. They probably thought I was lonely and scared and inventing dangers to feel important. But I wasn't inventing anything. The danger was real. I could feel it in my bones. That afternoon, I went to the police station. I filed a report. The officer was young. He had kind eyes. He took my statement with patience. Ma'am, do you have any idea who might be following you? I think it might be my children, I said. Or someone they hired. And why would your children have you followed? I explained everything. The will. The money. The fight in the kitchen. The medical bills. The cancer. The stolen $15,000. The desperate texts. The threats. The entire ugly saga. The officer nodded. He wrote things down. He didn't look surprised. He had seen it all before. Ma'am, he said. I'm going to be honest with you. This is a family dispute. We can't do much unless there's a direct threat or an incident. But we'll keep your report on file. And if you feel unsafe, call us. We'll respond. I thanked him and left. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and purple. I walked to my car and looked around the parking lot. No dark sedan. No tinted windows. Just ordinary cars. Ordinary people. I drove home slowly. I checked my mirrors constantly. I took a different route. I made extra turns. No one followed me. When I got home, I checked the cameras. The app on my phone showed the front porch, the backyard, the driveway. Everything was quiet. Everything was normal. I made myself dinner. I ate it alone. I watched the news. I went to bed. The next day, I got a call from the hospital. The biopsy had been moved up. They had a cancellation. Could I come in tomorrow morning? Yes, I said. I'll be there. I didn't tell my children. I didn't want them there. I didn't want their guilt. I didn't want their drama. I wanted to face this alone. I had faced everything else alone. I could face this alone. But the morning of the biopsy, something happened. Something unexpected. I was in the hospital waiting room, filling out forms, when Susan walked in. Her face was pale. Her eyes were red. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Mom, she said. Why didn't you tell me? How did you know? I asked. Mark told me. He called me last night. He said you had cancer. He said you were having a biopsy today. He said you didn't want us here. I set down the pen. He was right. I didn't want you here. I know, Susan said. I know you're angry. I know you have every right to be angry. I know I was horrible. I know I said terrible things. I know I treated you like a bank account. But I'm here anyway. Because you're my mother. And I love you. I looked at her. She was crying. The real kind of crying. The kind that makes your nose run and your face blotchy and your voice crack. Do you love me? I asked. Or do you love the idea of me? Do you love what I can give you? I love you, she said. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean any of it. I was so scared. We were so scared. We didn't know what to do. And we took it out on you. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that the daughter I had raised was still in there somewhere. That the greedy, manipulative woman who had stood in my kitchen and demanded my savings was just a temporary possession. That the real Susan was this broken, weeping woman in front of me. Stay, I said. If you want to stay, you can stay. She sat down next to me. She took my hand. She held it like she used to hold it when she was a child crossing the street. You're going to be okay, she said. I know you are. I didn't answer. I didn't know if I was going to be okay. I didn't know if any of us were going to be okay. But I knew that in this moment, I wasn't alone. And that was something. The procedure was quick. They put me under. I woke up groggy in recovery. Susan was there. She was holding my hand. She was crying again. The doctor said it went well, she said. We'll know in a few days. I nodded. I was too tired to speak. Mark arrived later. He looked nervous. He kept pacing. He kept checking his phone. Mom, he said. I need to tell you something. Something about the money. About the $15,000 I stole. I already know about it, I said. No, he said. It's not just that. I didn't spend all of it. Some of it I gave to someone. Someone who was pressuring me. Someone who told me to get the money from you. Someone who said they would hurt my family if I didn't. I sat up in the hospital bed. Who? I don't know his real name, Mark said. I met him online. He said he was a loan shark. He said he would break my legs if I didn't pay. I was scared. I was so scared. So I took your money. And I paid him. But he came back for more. He said I owed him more. And he said I should get it from you. I stared at my son. The room spun. The beeping of the heart monitor was too loud. Mark, I said. Did this person follow me? Was he in a dark sedan? Mark's face went white. How do you know about that? Because he followed me, I said. He followed me from the hospital to the police station. He followed me home. And now you're telling me he's connected to you. Connected to the money. Connected to all of this. Susan stood up. Her voice was shrill. Mark, what did you do? I didn't know he would follow her, Mark said. I didn't know. He said he would just watch. He said he would just make sure she was safe. He said he lied, I said. He's a criminal. He's a predator. And you brought him into our lives. I closed my eyes. The tears were coming again. The betrayal. The fear. The exhaustion. It was all too much. Mom, I'm sorry, Mark said. I'm so sorry. I'll fix this. I'll fix everything. How? I asked. How are you going to fix it? He didn't have an answer. He just stood there, staring at the floor, like the broken little boy he had become. And in that moment, I made a choice. I chose myself. I chose my safety. I chose my future. Get out, I said. Both of you. Get out, and don't come back until you can tell me the truth. The whole truth. Not pieces. Not parts. The truth. They left. The room was silent. The machine beeped. The clock ticked. I was alone again. But this time, I wasn't afraid. This time, I was angry. I took out my phone. I called the police. I told them everything. I gave them the name Mark had mentioned. I gave them the description of the sedan. I gave them the location of the loan shark's operation. I gave them everything. Ma'am, the officer said. We'll look into this. But I want you to be careful. These people are dangerous. I knew. I knew they were dangerous. But I was done being scared. I was done being a victim. My name is Helen Walsh. I have a biopsy to wait for. I have a son who is in debt to a criminal. I have a daughter who is desperate and broken. I have a life that is falling apart. But I am still standing. And I am not going to fall. If this story speaks to you, if it wakes something up inside you, share it. Hit like. Leave a comment. Tell me your story. Because every story deserves to be told. And every survivor deserves to be heard. The truth will set you free. But first, it will make you uncomfortable. And that's okay. Because on the other side of discomfort is freedom. And freedom is worth everything. The hospital room was too quiet after my children left. The heart monitor beeped in a steady rhythm, a mechanical heartbeat that reminded me I was still alive. Still breathing. Still fighting. I stared at the ceiling and replayed the conversation in my head. The loan shark. The dark sedan. The money Mark had stolen. The web of lies that had been spun around me for years. I had given the police everything I knew. Mark's description of the man. The name he had mentioned in his panicked confession. The location where he had made the payments. It wasn't much. It was barely a thread. But it was a start. The nurse came in to check my vitals. She was young, probably in her 20s, with kind eyes and a gentle touch. She smiled at me as she wrapped the blood pressure cuff around my arm. Everything looks good, she said. Your vitals are stable. The doctor will be in to see you in a few hours. Thank you, I said. My voice was hoarse. I hadn't realized how much I had been crying. She left the room. I was alone again. I reached for my phone on the bedside table. The screen was dark. I had turned it off after my argument with Mark and Susan. I didn't want to see their texts. I didn't want to hear their apologies. I wanted silence. I wanted peace. But silence was dangerous. I knew that now. Silence had allowed my children to plot against me. Silence had allowed my son to steal from me. Silence had allowed a predator to follow me through the streets of my own town. I turned the phone back on. The screen flooded with notifications. 23 missed calls. 47 texts. Most from Susan. Some from Mark. A few from numbers I didn't recognize. I scrolled through the messages. They were a mix of apologies, accusations, and desperate pleas. Susan had written paragraphs about how sorry she was. Mark had written paragraphs about how he was going to fix everything. The unknown numbers were blank. No messages. Just missed calls. I deleted the notifications. I didn't have the energy to read them. I didn't have the energy to respond. The door opened again. I expected the nurse. Instead, a man in a dark suit walked in. He was tall. He had a stern face and a badge clipped to his belt. Mrs. Walsh, he said. I'm Detective Ryan. I'm with the local precinct. Your report was forwarded to us. I'd like to ask you a few questions. I sat up straighter in the bed. Of course. He pulled a chair to my bedside. He took out a notebook and a pen. His eyes were sharp. They missed nothing. Tell me about the sedan, he said. Every detail. The color. The model. The license plate. Anything you remember. I closed my eyes and focused. The image was burned into my memory. The dark paint. The tinted windows. The way it had followed me turn by turn, never getting too close, never falling too far behind. Dark sedan, I said. Black or dark blue? I couldn't tell. The windows were tinted. I couldn't see the driver. I don't remember the license plate. I was too scared to look. Did you see anyone get in or out? No. Did you notice anything distinctive about the car? A dent, a scratch, a sticker? I thought hard. The details were fuzzy. I had been driving on autopilot, my mind racing, my heart pounding. But then I remembered something. A small thing. A tiny detail that had barely registered at the time. There was a crack in the windshield, I said. On the passenger side. A spiderweb crack. Like something had hit it. Detective Ryan nodded. He wrote something down. That's helpful. That's very helpful. He asked more questions. Did I have any idea who might be driving the sedan? Did I have any enemies? Did I owe anyone money? Did my son mention any names? Did my daughter mention any names? I answered everything. I held nothing back. The truth was the only weapon I had left. Or when did you first notice the sedan? He asked. After I left the hospital, I said. After my oncologist appointment. The day I found out I needed the biopsy. I was on my way home when I saw it in my rearview mirror. And you said it followed you to the police station, yes? I pulled into the parking lot. The sedan drove past slowly. It didn't stop. It just drove by. Detective Ryan leaned forward. Mrs. Walsh, I'm going to be honest with you. We've had reports of a similar vehicle in the area. A dark sedan with tinted windows and a cracked windshield. It's been seen following other elderly women. Women who live alone. Women who have recently come into money or made changes to their wills. I felt the blood drain from my face. Other women, yes. 3 others. All in the same county. All in the same age range. All had children who were pressuring them about their estates. The room started to spin. I gripped the bed rails to steady myself. Is there a connection? I asked. Are these women being targeted? We don't know yet, Detective Ryan said. But the pattern is concerning. We're investigating. And we're taking your case very seriously. We've assigned a detail to watch your house. We've increased patrols in your neighborhood. But I need you to be vigilant. I need you to call us if anything seems off. Anything at all. I nodded. My throat was tight. My eyes were burning. I will, I said. I promise. He stood up. He handed me his card. Call me directly. Day or night. If something happens, don't wait. Don't hesitate. Call me. He left the room. I stared at the card in my hand. Detective Ryan. Direct line. The number was embossed in black letters. It felt like a lifeline. A thin rope in a deep, dark well. The next few hours passed in a blur. The doctor came in. He reviewed my vitals. He told me they would call with the biopsy results in 3 to 5 days. He told me to rest. He told me to stay calm. Stay calm. Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one being followed. He wasn't the one with a son in debt to a loan shark. He wasn't the one with a daughter who had traded her mother's love for a bigger house. The next morning, I was discharged. Susan was waiting for me in the lobby. She had brought flowers. Pink roses. My favorite. Mom, she said. I'm sorry. I know you told me not to come. But I had to. I had to see you. I had to make sure you were okay. I took the flowers. The petals were soft. The smell was sweet. I'm okay, I said. I'm going home. I'll drive you. No, I said. I'll drive myself. Mom, please. Let me do this. Let me help. I looked at her. Her eyes were red. Her face was pale. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. She looked like she was carrying the weight of the world. Okay, I said. You can drive me. She drove. I sat in the passenger seat and watched the scenery pass. The hospital gave way to residential streets. Residential streets gave way to my neighborhood. My little house. My fortress. She parked in the driveway. She helped me out of the car. She carried my bag to the door. Mom, she said. I want to tell you something. Something I should have told you a long time ago. I turned to face her. What, the loan shark, she said. I know him. I knew him before Mark did. He used to work for a company I consulted for. He was fired for inappropriate behavior. He threatened me. He said he would come after my family. I didn't tell anyone. I was too scared. I stared at my daughter. The room swayed. The walls closed in. You knew, I said. You knew about him. And you didn't say anything. I was scared, Mom. I was so scared. He said he would hurt you. He said he would hurt my kids. He said he would burn down my house. I thought if I stayed quiet, he would leave us alone. But you didn't stay quiet, I said. You came to me. You demanded my money. You told me to hand over my savings. You told me to stop being selfish. You made me feel like I was the problem. And all along, you knew there was a predator out there. You knew my son was in danger. And you didn't tell me. Susan started to cry. I was trying to protect you. Protect me, I laughed. It was a hollow laugh. The kind that echoes in an empty room. You were trying to protect yourself. You were trying to protect your house. Your family. Your reputation. You weren't trying to protect me. You were trying to protect you. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. Go, I said. Go home. Go think about what you've done. And don't come back until you understand. She left. The door clicked shut. I was alone. I walked to the kitchen. I poured a glass of water. I drank it slowly. The cold liquid hit my stomach. It was the only thing that felt real. I checked my phone. A text from Harold. Call me when you get home. It's urgent. I called him. He answered on the first ring. Helen, he said. I've been doing some digging. About the loan shark. About the sedan. About the other women. It's bigger than I thought. What do you mean? I asked. These aren't random attacks. These are organized. Someone is targeting elderly women with estates. Someone is using their children to get close to them. Someone is systematically draining their accounts. And the dark sedan. It's part of a larger operation. An operation that stretches across 3 counties. I felt the blood drain from my face. Are you saying this is a ring? I'm saying you need to be careful. I'm saying you need to trust no one. Not your son. Not your daughter. Not even me. Not even you. He paused. I'm not saying I'm part of it. I'm saying you don't know who is. The police are investigating. But they have suspects. Some of them are close to you. Some of them are very close. I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking. The room was spinning. I walked to the front door. I checked the lock. I walked to the back door. I checked the lock. I checked the windows. I checked the garage. And then I saw it. A car parked across the street. A dark sedan. With a cracked windshield. My heart stopped. My breath caught in my throat. I watched the car. It didn't move. It just sat there. Idling. Waiting. I grabbed my phone. I dialed Detective Ryan. He answered on the second ring. It's here, I whispered. The sedan. It's parked across the street. It's watching my house. Stay inside, he said. Don't open the door. We're on our way. I crouched behind the living room window and peered through the blinds. The sedan was still there. The engine was running. I could see the exhaust in the cold air. And then the door opened. A man stepped out. He was tall. He was wearing a dark coat and a baseball cap. He walked toward my front door. I backed away from the window. My heart was pounding. My chest was tight. I looked around the room for something to defend myself. A knife. A bat. Anything. I grabbed the fireplace poker from the hearth. It was heavy. It was solid. It was the only thing between me and the man at my door. The doorbell rang. I didn't answer. The doorbell rang again. Then the knocking started. Loud. Insistent. Desperate. Mrs. Walsh, a voice called. I know you're in there. I need to talk to you. Please. I didn't recognize the voice. It was deep. It was calm. It was terrifying. Go away, I shouted. I've called the police. The knocking stopped. The doorbell stopped. I heard footsteps retreating. I peered through the blinds again. The man was walking back to his sedan. He was getting in. He was driving away. The police arrived moments later. They searched the neighborhood. They found nothing. But I knew. I knew he would be back. I knew this wasn't over. My name is Helen Walsh. I am not going to be a victim. I am going to survive. I am going to fight. I am going to win. If this story resonates with you, if you feel the fear and the anger and the hope in every word, then share it. Hit like. Leave a comment. Tell me your story. In the darkness, we find our strength. In the fear, we find our courage. And in the fight, we find ourselves. I am Helen Walsh. And I am not afraid anymore. The police swept my neighborhood for an hour. Flashlights cut through the darkness. Cars crawled down every street. They found nothing. The sedan was gone. The man was gone. But I knew he would be back. I could feel it in my bones. Detective Ryan stayed with me until midnight. He sat in my kitchen, drinking coffee I had brewed with shaking hands. He asked more questions. I answered them all. The name Mark had mentioned. The company Susan had consulted for. The pattern across 3 counties. I gave him everything I had. Mrs. Walsh, he said, setting down his mug. We have reason to believe this operation is connected to a larger network. We're working with federal authorities. But I need you to understand something. You're a witness now. You're a target. And we can't protect you unless you let us. What do you mean? I asked. I mean, I want you to leave your house. Temporarily. We have a safe location. A hotel. Undisclosed. You'd be protected around the clock. I looked around my kitchen. The countertops I had scrubbed. The table where I had fed my children. The walls that held decades of memories. This was my home. My fortress. The only place in the world that was truly mine. No, I said. I'm not leaving. Helen, I've spent my whole life running, I said. Running after my husband. Running after my kids. Running after bills. Running after health. I'm done running. If they want me, they can come find me. And when they do, I'll be ready. Detective Ryan sighed. He rubbed his temples. He was tired. I could see it in his eyes. At least let me leave an officer outside. Overnight. Just until we get a handle on this. I nodded. Fine. But I'm staying. He made a call. A patrol car pulled into my driveway. The officer inside waved. I waved back. Detective Ryan left. I locked the door. I checked every window. I checked every lock. I went to bed fully dressed, with the fireplace poker on the nightstand beside me. I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark and stared at the ceiling. The hours crawled by. The clock ticked. The house creaked. Every sound made me jump. At 3 a.m. I heard it. A soft thud. Coming from the back of the house. I sat up in bed. My heart was pounding. I grabbed the poker. Another thud. This one louder. Then the sound of glass breaking. The back door. Someone had broken the glass. I slipped out of bed. I crept to the bedroom door. I opened it slowly. The hallway was dark. The house was silent. I walked toward the kitchen. My bare feet were silent on the carpet. I gripped the poker so hard my knuckles ached. I rounded the corner and saw him. A man in a dark coat. He was standing in my kitchen, his back to me. He was searching through my drawers. He had a flashlight in one hand. A knife in the other. Looking for something, I said. He spun around. The flashlight beam hit my face. I squinted but didn't flinch. Who are you? I asked. What do you want? He laughed. It was a cold laugh. The kind that makes your blood freeze. Your money, he said. Your will. Your house. Everything. Over my dead body, I said. He lunged at me. I swung the poker. It connected with his arm. He screamed and dropped the knife. The knife skittered across the floor. I kicked it away. He came at me again. This time with his fists. I swung the poker again. It hit his shoulder. He grunted but kept coming. I backed into the living room. He followed. I could see the patrol car outside. The officer was slumped in his seat. Unconscious. They had taken him out first. You're alone, the man said. Just like you've always been alone. No one is coming for you. I don't need anyone to come for me, I said. I grabbed the lamp off the end table and threw it at him. It shattered against his chest. He stumbled. I swung the poker one more time. It connected with his temple. He went down hard. The crack echoed through the house. He didn't get up. I stood over him. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. The poker was slick with blood. I didn't know if he was dead. I didn't care. I grabbed my phone from the couch and dialed 911. I gave them my address. I told them what happened. I told them to hurry. Then I sat down on the couch. I stared at the man on my floor. He wasn't moving. The blood was pooling beneath his head. It was dark. It was thick. It was real. The police arrived in minutes. They swarmed the house. They took the man away. They questioned me for hours. Detective Ryan arrived. He looked at me with a mix of awe and concern. Helen, he said. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said. Did I kill him? No, he said. But you came close. He's in the hospital. He'll live. And he'll talk. He's already talking. He gave us the whole operation. The loan shark ring. The network across 3 counties. The people involved. Were my children involved, I asked. The question had been burning inside me for days. I needed to know. I needed to hear the truth. Detective Ryan paused. He looked at me with those sharp, tired eyes. Your son, Mark, was involved indirectly. He was a victim. He was being extorted. Your daughter, Susan, was involved directly. She knew about the operation. She had been feeding them information. About you. About your will. About your money. She thought she could get a cut of the proceeds. The room swayed. The walls closed in. I had expected it. I had braced for it. But hearing it out loud was still a knife to the chest. Where is she? I asked. She's in custody, he said. We picked her up an hour ago. She confessed. She's cooperating. She's trying to save herself. I nodded. I didn't cry. I had no tears left. I had been hollowed out. Empty. What about Mark? I asked. He's been cleared, Detective Ryan said. He's a victim. He's going to need help. But he's not going to jail. I closed my eyes. I thought about my son. The boy who had come to me in tears. The boy who had confessed. The boy who had tried to make things right. I had forgiven him. And now I knew he was innocent. But Susan, my daughter, the girl I had held in my arms, the girl I had taught to ride a bike, the girl I had watched walk down the aisle, she had betrayed me. For money. For status. For a bigger house. I sat in the silence of my living room. The blood had been cleaned up. The broken glass had been swept away. But the damage remained. Deep. Permanent. The next day, Mark came to see me. He looked haggard. He looked broken. He had lost weight. His clothes hung loose on his frame. Mom, he said. I'm so sorry. I should have told you everything. I should have come to you first. You were scared, I said. You were in over your head. I know. But that's not an excuse. I should have trusted you. I should have let you help. I took his hand. You're here now. That's what matters. We sat together in the living room. We didn't talk. We just sat. The silence was heavy, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people who had been through hell and survived. Mark stayed with me for a week. He helped me around the house. He cooked dinners. He fixed the broken lock on the back door. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't demand anything. He just existed. Quietly. Humbly. The biopsy results came in. I opened the envelope with trembling hands. The words blurred. I read them twice. 3 times. Negative. The lesion was benign. The cancer was not back. I cried. I cried for the first time in days. The tears were relief. Pure. Unfiltered. Free. I called Mark. I called Harold. I called Detective Ryan. I told them all. The weight of months lifted from my shoulders. I could breathe again. I could live again. The trial came months later. Susan sat in the courtroom with her head bowed. She looked small. Broken. Nothing like the woman who had stood in my kitchen and demanded my life savings. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison. The judge called her actions despicable and unforgivable. He said she had betrayed the trust of a woman who had given her everything. Susan looked at me as they led her away. Her eyes were wet. Her lips were moving. I couldn't hear what she was saying. I didn't want to hear. I turned away. I visited her once. In the prison visitation room. She sat across from me behind a glass partition. She picked up the phone. I picked up mine. Mom, she said. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. I know, I said. I forgive you. Do you mean that? I do, I said. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And it doesn't mean giving you a second chance. Not right now. Maybe someday. But not now. She nodded. She understood. I'll wait, she said. I'll wait as long as it takes. I hung up the phone. I walked out of the prison. The sun was shining. The sky was blue. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I went home. I sat on my back porch. I looked at the overgrown garden. The roses my husband had planted were blooming again. Bright red. Vibrant. Full of life. I made a decision. I was going to hire a gardener. I was going to restore the garden. I was going to bring the roses back to their full glory. I was going to live. I was going to thrive. I was going to be happy. The money I had left, the money I had saved, The money I had given to St. Jude's, it was all gone. But I didn't miss it. I had something more valuable. I had my freedom. I had my health. I had my peace. And I had my son. Mark had started a new job. He was paying back the money he had stolen. Slowly, bit by bit. He was attending therapy. He was rebuilding his life. He was becoming the man I had always known he could be. I joined a support group. Women my age. Women who had been through similar experiences. Women who had been betrayed by their children. Women who had survived. We met once a week. We talked. We cried. We laughed. We healed. One evening, I was sitting in my living room. The same living room where I had held my son. The same living room where I had fought off an intruder. The same living room where I had made so many memories. There was a knock at the door. I opened it. Mark stood there. He had a bouquet of roses in his hand. Red ones. Like the ones in the garden. "Mom," he said. "Happy birthday." I had forgotten it was my birthday. I had forgotten everything except the present. The moment. The now. I took the roses. I hugged him. I held him tight. "Thank you," I said. "Thank you for being here." He smiled. "I'm not going anywhere, Mom. Not ever again." We went inside. We made dinner together. We ate it together. We talked. We laughed. We cried. We were a family. Not the family I had dreamed of, but a family nonetheless. That night, I sat on my back porch. The stars were out. The garden was still overgrown, but the roses were blooming. They were beautiful. I looked up at the sky. I thought about my husband. I thought about my children. I thought about the journey I had taken. The pain, the betrayal, the fear, the triumph, the forgiveness. I had come so far. I had survived so much. And I was still standing. I learned something through all of this. I learned that family is not defined by blood. It's defined by action. It's defined by love. It's defined by showing up, even when it's hard. Even when it costs you something. My daughter didn't show up. My daughter didn't love. My daughter didn't sacrifice. But my son did. In the end, my son showed up. And I showed up for myself. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. I chose my health. I chose my peace. I chose my future. And that choice changed everything. So if you're out there, if you're struggling, if you're scared, if you're tired, remember this. You have a choice. You always have a choice. You can let them take everything. Or you can fight. You can stand up. You can say no. The people who love you will never demand everything and offer nothing. And the people who demand everything and offer nothing never loved you in the first place. My name is Helen Walsh. I am 59 years old. I have a new knee, a new will, a new life, and a garden full of roses. And I have never been happier. If this story touched you, if it made you feel something real, then share it. Hit that like button. Leave a comment. Tell me your story. Because every story matters. Every voice deserves to be heard. And every survivor deserves to be celebrated. I am Helen Walsh. And I choose love. I choose forgiveness. I choose peace. And so can you.